Welcome to Chandwell. My name's Michael and I'm building the back of a commercial street to run behind my station. In the last episode I showed the mock-up of the street made from cereal box card. In this episode we're looking at the final part of the planning process. How am I going to join the street to the hotel? The Royal Scot Hotel proudly stands at the top of Market Street and is a very imposing building. I want to give the impression that it stands in its own space without anything joining onto it. But I also don't want there to be a break in the back scene through which we will see clouds. So, what can I do? My original plan for Market Street was something like this. A lane comes up the back of the properties from the high street and then turns 90 degrees between the properties and the hotel to join Market Street on the other side. I printed a photo of Little Germany in Bradford that shows a typical street with a building at the end. The street was maybe too long, but this was just a test. I cut it out and mounted it behind the hotel and the first mocked up building. From this angle, the effect was alright. It certainly showed what I wanted it to. From dead ahead like this, it was easy to fool the eyes into thinking that they were looking down a street. But could I do it any better? I took the photo and folded it outwards so that the two sides projected forwards towards my eyes. This simple effect is stunning. It makes the illusion 10 times better. Stuck onto the buildings like this, the effect was much better from more viewing angles. It worked from either side as well as straight on. But I don't like the really low horizon line and the tiny building at the end of the street. Market Street isn't that far away, and I think it would be really hard to get a set of photos that complete the illusion and make it work from more angles. What if I used my own designs instead of photos? I tried mocking up some smaller, flatter buildings to represent the other side of Market Street. I printed an extremely squashed side profile onto the side of the building to represent the full depth of the property. This didn't really work at all, and I abandoned this idea without giving it much more thought. I wondered if I could redraw the map of Chandwell a little. What if Market Street curved? The back lane would curve with the buildings, and perhaps the Royal Scot sits in the resulting triangle between the back of Market Street and Station Road. Could I do something like this? I only have the tiniest of spaces into which to fit this illusion. This triangle of space is only 45mm long and 30mm at its widest point. I wondered if I could make the side of the building a receding shape to make it look like it is further behind the hotel than in reality. I drew a sketch with a pen and taped it to the side of the mock-up. In place, I started to get a feel for what I was trying to do. There really is not much space, but I got the feeling that this could possibly work. I would need to model the ground rising here to make it look like it's fading into the background. I played with horizon lines and vanishing points in Inkscape, and then used its Perspective Transform Path tool to fit the side of a building into the resulting trapezoid. I printed this first test and stuck it to serial packet, before folding it into shape and holding it together with tape. In place I think it looked okay, but it was a bit of an extreme angle. The effect almost worked, but it still felt wrong. I cut a triangle of card and slotted it into the gap, pointing upwards, to represent the ground. This made a big difference, and I think once joined with the same texture as the rest of the ground, it should look like it's the lane receding into the distance. I made a second mock-up. This time I put the horizon line higher so that the middle row of windows remain largely horizontal. I moved the vanishing point more to the right to reduce the extreme diagonal lines. This feels like I am actually onto something. The next building along will be projecting further into the layout to hide the join from angles to the left. I think this will work well. So this is where I am. I've slotted this flat building behind it, and I will use more of these flat pastel shapes to represent buildings in the far distance. With the ground in place and a small wall to hint at the lane pushing onwards from around the curve, I think a realistic view could be had. I like this as there is no gap in the back scene, and it does, from at least some angles, look like the hotel is in its own space. This is only ever going to be the backdrop to the rest of my layout, so it doesn't need to be perfect. But if I get the textures right, and the colours, then I'm hopeful that I'm onto a winner here. Hello to Stephen Flebb, who has joined my channel as a Chandwell business owner. Welcome to you and the new Chandwell residents. Thank you. Have a look in the description of this video if you're interested. I've used forced perspective before. Here's a look at how I made a road vanish into a 3D back scene, which you may find interesting. I'm going to start the build of Market Street now. So until my next video, thank you for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you then.